No one really talks about what it's like to become a mother while grieving your own mother. In today's video, I'm going to talk about my journey to becoming her. So, I've told this story before, but my immediate postpartum, about a week after Kaya was born, I started having complications. So took her to her first doctor's appointment, and that night I just was in a lot of pain. By Wednesday, going into Thursday, I could not keep solid food down. So my mom had come to take me to her follow-up appointment. So she ended up staying after that because really basically the only thing that I could do was feed my daughter, and then someone else had to put her back in her bassinet. It hurt to move, it hurt to do anything. So for those next couple of weeks, she was there with me, um, morning and night, doing almost all the diaper changes, helping me with breastfeeding. And I remember after her first doctor's appointment, Kaya had lost not a significant amount of weight to be alarming, but just for reference, she was like 4 pounds, 4 ounces, and she got down to 314. So I was like freaking out about that a little bit, even though I knew that that was normal. But my mom just helped to cheer me on and say, "You're producing enough milk, it'll be fine." And I also knew that she had time to gain that weight back. So I was in such bad shape that I didn't even get to go to my daughter's follow up appointment, but I was slowly getting better. And as I started getting better, I started taking on more of the care, like changing the diapers, getting up and getting her out of the bassinet for feedings, and just kind of starting to bond and spend more time with her. So I thought it was time for my mom to kind of go home. I kind of felt guilty in a way because she was older and I knew she wasn't getting enough rest, things like that, by helping me. So I told her to go home. I think I'm okay now. And at that point, I was able to go up and downstairs and finally sleep in my own bed. So after I sent her home, she still came. She still would check on me, make sure I had food and whatever I needed for Kaya. And I want to say, if I remember correctly, it was the Thursday before New Year's Day. And she came over. She wanted to hold Kaya, so she stayed for a little bit and held her. And then she walked down the stairs. Well, a few days went by. I couldn't get in touch with my mom, and she finally answered the phone for my sister. And my sister called me on three-way. We were talking to her, and she just sounded really confused. So, I was like, no, something's not right. You need to go to the hospital. Well, long story short, my sister went and checked on her because I still wasn't driving or anything like that. And she ended up being taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and she never made it back home. So my last memory of my mother was that Thursday, her going down the stairs and leaving and saying, "I'll see you later." So after, that whole ordeal, like while that was going on, while she was in the hospital, I just remember like taking walks with Kaya and trying to find things to do to keep my mind off of what was going on. Because one thing is, when you are medical and you know what these doctor reports mean, bar miracle, you already know what the outcome is. So I had spoken with a palliative care doctor at some point. So I knew that unless there was a miracle, this was not going to end well. So the one thing that kind of sticks out to me that I was kind of scrambling during that time and trying to figure out was, how am I going to find a black dress for my newborn for the funeral? I know that might seem a little crazy, but I did. That's what I started to focus on. Like, I have to get an outfit for me and an outfit for her to say my goodbye to my mother. So after the fact, you know, I didn't really feel like I had support like her. Like, she was cooking for me and, would hold Kaya while I took a shower. But it's kind of like when I thought that my support system was going to lean in and be there for me, I still don't really know exactly why, but it felt like they leaned out. And I was just kind of left with this newborn to kind of figure it out by myself. And part of that might be me not reaching out and saying what I needed. But honestly, in those moments, I remember feeling like I shouldn't have to. So the things that I did to kind of help me cope, because I was actually still on maternity leave, was I just spent as much time with Kaya as I could before I got ready to go back to work. I just kind of just remember existing for a while and having all these emotions like um, jealousy, because my older sisters had their children younger. So my mother was with them when they had their children. And, realizing that my daughter would never really know who my mother is besides like pictures and some videos that I have of her. Um, Common emotions that I felt was just like I was angry because she was such an essential part of my support system. And it's like, why did you have to leave now? But I also knew that she was having some challenges and some struggles that she no longer was having to deal with, and that she was at peace. One big realization that I had when having a newborn and your mom not being present is she's not there to answer those questions that you might have. So Kaya was not sleeping well. And I remember thinking, I wonder what my mom did to help me sleep better. So you'll have those type of questions sometimes. And my best way of dealing with that was reaching out to people. Like, I have an aunt that's very supportive, and even my dad, sometimes when he was alive, I would reach out to him to try to get those stories about me when I was a baby. One thing that I learned once this all kind of settled was I had to learn how to trust myself and know that I had the intuition, the knowledge, and the memory of even my mother taking care of my nieces and nephews to kind of carry me through sometimes that I didn't really trust myself and my knowledge. I also started therapy because I had already been in therapy, but like um I added processing my mother's passing to my therapy sessions and working through that. I want to also encourage you to take care of yourself. And in those moments, that is another thing I did. I kind of honestly took some time from working and just focused on being a mother, and just mentally took that break to properly feel like I was grieving. I know that's not always an option, but find ways to take time for yourself to be able to take care of yourself. Because one thing that I realized was I cannot be my best self for Kaya if I am not my best self for myself. So, what does becoming her look like? Becoming her for me was trusting myself, and it was finding ways to honor my mother even though she wasn't here. And one of those things that I did was it was very important to me to breastfeed my daughter for an extended period of time. Mom used to talk about she was like really big into the Leche League, and she was like my breastfeeding cheerleader when I was kind of struggling in the beginning with being confident in breastfeeding. And so that's one thing that kind of carried me through is I knew that my mom would have been proud of, me breastfeeding and continuing to breastfeed beyond what others typically see as the right amount of time. I'll say the right amount of time, or, kind of brushing off those comments like, girl, you still breastfeeding? So finding ways that your mom used to do things for you to honor her and kind of carry her with you in those moments. Maybe your mother is still living and you don't have a good relationship with your mother. And one thing that, if possible, I would encourage you to do is reach out and start having those hard conversations with your mother, if that's possible. Because I remember having these conversations with my mother while she was alive and having those hard conversations and asking questions about, well, why didn't you do this? And when I was younger, why did you do this? Or why didn't you do this? And that was very helpful in mending the relationship before she passed. And that's something that I will forever be grateful for. So, if possible, start trying to have those hard conversations with your mom so that you can possibly mend that relationship with your mother while she's still here. Grief doesn't pause for motherhood. It's something that you learn to kind of adjust, deal with, remember, celebrate, honor over time. So even if you don't have that example, if you had a really good relationship with your mom and you felt like she was a wonderful mom, know that you can carry little pieces of her with you and the good things that she did for you and do them for your child. So even if you're grieving, you're still growing and becoming the mother that you're supposed to be. So that's your becoming her, is taking those pieces of your mom with you and becoming the mother that you're meant to be while also acknowledging the mother that you had. If this was helpful, feel free to share with someone that might have lost their mother. Or if you lost your mother, I would love to hear about things that you would like to talk about during this series that might be helpful to someone else going through and a part of this group of mothers that are mothering while motherless.